Hey guys, I'm Skillzman, and this is IronSkillz. Today I want to talk to you about something related to Smite, and I want to talk about something personal, kind of what Iron did. But instead of talking about one specific god that I really like, that I think is underutilized, I'd rather talk about something that pertains to a lot of mages. Specifically, this won't really have much impact on the whole game, but I think it does kind of have an impact on your early game, and I'm talking about starter items. Mages typically have 2 items to start with most of the time. Extremely rarely will they use anything other than these 2 items. If you're used to mages, you probably know what these are, but for the others, I'm talking about Vampiric Shroud and Soulstone. Vampiric Shroud is an item in which you get health, power, a little bit of MP5, and then the passive gives you some health and mana when you kill an enemy. And most of these enemies are going to be minions, because getting kills on gods is a little bit harder in the early game. But these count on minions, which means, essentially, if you can defeat the entire minion wave with one ability, then you're going to get most of the mana you consumed from killing the minion wave back, as well as getting some free health, which is always nice. Soulstone, on the other hand, gives you power and mana, and then has a nice little passive. When you use your basic attacks and you hit an enemy, you get a stack of Soulstone, and each of these stacks gives you 4 MP5. Now, I know some of these numbers might change in the future, but this is coming out at 3.8. These items have been relatively unchanged for a long time, but right now I am in 3.8, so I just wanted to throw that out before I finish. The final thing to note is that if you have all 5 stacks that you're allowed, your next damaging ability will use 60 more magical power. This is really nice because it helps you with wave clear, and it gives you mana regeneration. But the big difference between the two is Vampiric Shroud also gives you health, and Soulstone requires basic attacking. So I want to kind of help out some people who are new to playing mages, or mid, or anything related to playing a god that has you choose between these 2 items. Let me just explain. The reason why you don't really see that many Soulstones is because Vampiric Shroud is a very balanced item. There's almost no god. Actually, change that. Every mage benefits from Vampiric Shroud. There's no mage who would be sad with this item. However, Soulstone, while in my opinion is a stronger item, not necessarily better, but stronger, is very good on a few specific gods. And I'm not going to give you the list because I think this is probably a good opportunity to give an example of analyzing items. If someone tells you what an item does and then you go into a match and you just memorize what they told you it does, then that's kind of like, give a man a fish, fed for a day, teach a man to fish, then fed for a lifetime. So instead of telling you who to buy this item for and who shouldn't buy this item, I'm going to tell you how to decide yourself, but with a 3-step questionnaire that I kind of give myself very quickly in my head. Typically, you'll go through these questions very quickly in your head simply because you know how this god works. And you'll know what the answer to these questions are going to be very quickly. So, first off, the big question is, when do you get Soulstone? Because there's never a bad time to get Vampiric Shroud, unless maybe you're using a mage in the jungle. Then you'd probably want Bumba's Mask, but most of the time you're going to want Vampiric Shroud. So when do you get Soulstone? Well, I've come up with 3 little questions, and keep in mind, every god can use Vampiric Shroud, so in the end, if you just simply don't want to use Soulstone, then you can ignore these questions, close the video, and just leave. But if you want to think about when you can, or should actually, use Soulstone, then here's the first question. Question 1. Does the god defeat an entire minion wave with a single ability? You should see in front of you the list of mages that are currently out. Ra, for example, once he gets his first ability upgraded to about rank 3 or 4, he doesn't really leave any of the minions behind except maybe one of the larger buffer minions. I would say he would pass this test, and by passing this test, I would say just go for Vampiric Shroud. And why is it that I would say that? The reason is you have to basic attack to get the stacks for Soulstone. If one ability wipes out the entire minion wave, then the only person to basic attack against is the enemy god. And mages, especially if they're playing mid, tend to attack the minion wave and then kind of be cautious until the next wave shows up. Unless they have a reason to be very aggressive, like Kronos, knowing that his combo will go off against the enemy if he gets aggressive and can dodge one specific ability, then they'll typically kind of stare at each other for a while, and you're not really going to get those basic attack in. Now, on the other hand, someone like Janus, who I love to play Janus, but there's this kind of a downside is it's kind of hard to always hit every minion, which means not reliably, but most of the time, you'll leave one minion behind. And if you start getting really good at hitting every minion and defeating all of them, you've probably gotten to level 10 or 12, and you probably don't need either starter item anymore. So Janus would go on to the next question. The second question is, does the god benefit from basic attacking? Now, this might sound weird until you start looking around and start noticing Kronos is a kind of a hunter mage, and the same is for Freya. Then there's Sol, who's also considered a very hunter-like mage. But then there's gods like Agni, whose passive is filled up by basic attacking. So Agni is going to be basic attacking with Vampiric Shroud and Soulstone. Why? Because he wants to get his passive ready so he can do more damage. So in Agni's case, I would get Soulstone simply because you're going to be basic attacking anyways. And the only difference between his passive and Soulstone's passive is that Soulstone takes 2 extra basic attacks. And that's not much. And the third question is, does the god need to use multiple abilities to finish a minion wave? Now this kind of goes with gods like Opwash. His 2 cannot defeat a minion wave. It's not designed to. The whole point of Opwash's 2 is to explode his corpses. And the corpses are what's supposed to be doing the damage. But to put corpses on the ground, you need to use one of his other 2 abilities, which means that to defeat a minion wave, Opwash needs to use multiple abilities. Now, Habwa needs to use multiple abilities as well. His 1 is very strong, but it's typically not long range enough to hit the archers and the warriors at the same time, which means he's going to have to use 1 on the warriors and his 3 on the archers, or he can use his 1 twice, and in the end, he's using multiple abilities to clear the minion wave. Those are the 3 questions I asked, and I'll just very quickly go over the questions again. Question 1. Do you use a single ability to wipe out all minions? Example, Ra with his 1. Question 2. Are you going to be basic attacking with this god? For instance, Agni, Kronos, Sol, and Freya are pretty good examples of gods who would apply to this. Question 3. Do you need the extra mana regeneration because you are using multiple abilities to wipe out a minion wave? AKA Opwash and Hebwa are pretty good examples of this. Now, remember, in the end, Vampiric Shroud is good on everyone, so these are just ways to know, hey, maybe I should consider getting Soulstone instead. And there are some good exceptions to this. And I just kind of wanted to explain because no one really talks about it, so I think most people have to figure it out on their own, or they have a friend who thinks they figured it out, and they have to ask them. So no one really talks about this much because of all the stuff that's going on with like the hunters right now and the assassins. So I just wanted to kind of clarify this, and I hope that you've kind of figured out how I analyzed Soulstone using these 3 questions, so that if Soulstone ever gets deleted or changed drastically, or a 3rd item ever shows up that a mage might start with, then you can analyze that item to find out what is the purpose of this item, what are the benefits, who would really be much stronger if they had started with this item instead. This is IronSkillz, I was Skillzman, and this was my take on Soulstone versus Vampiric Shroud. Have a fantastic day.